I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Emmy nominee Will Poulter from the Hulu limited series Dopesick. He portrays Billy Cutler on that series, a pharmaceutical sales rep. The first question I wanted to ask you is, there are so many things about the opioid crisis that are, like truly skin crawling to learn about. And I was curious, in the course of doing this project, what in your opinion was the most disturbing thing that you learned about this terrible crisis?
Yeah, well, hey, Charlie, thanks for interviewing me. Yeah, I agree. Skin crawling is a really kind of wonderful way of putting it. I think, unfortunately, the deeper you go, the more kind of investigative that you get with the crisis, the more sort of disturbing it gets. I think it appears to be one thing on the surface, and then as you drill deeper, you learn very, very quickly that this crisis was something that was engineered over a long period of time. It was tactically created by a single company that was micromanaged by a single family. And to find out that so much sort of strategizing and hard work went into, I think, taking advantage of hardworking people who were, reliant on pain relief, who, were misled, were given false information, and in the process were also vilified and made to look like they were, the villains of this story. You sort of have to come to terms with the fact that not only is this a sort of a story of injustice, but it's also one where the real villains largely got away with it. And I think that is something that really kind of motivated Danny Strong, our creator, regarding, the creation of the story in the first place and wanting to get the truth out there. I think course correcting the narrative was a big motivation for everybody. And for me, playing one of the drug sales representatives for Purdue, I think finding out just how much those individuals were encouraged to engage in this kind of effectively what was a sort of a fraudulent advertising campaign, where we were, literally hiding any information that was damning or reflected negatively on the drug or the company, and actively selling it as if it was non-addictive, a very dangerous narcotic that never should have been on the market as a legitimate form of pain relief. Selling it as non-addictive and lying to doctors across the country, and in the process putting people's lives in grave danger.
Did that play a major reason, or at least one major reason, of why you wanted to be a part of this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, with an epidemic like the opioid crisis, I think sometimes the headlines grab our attention for a moment, but they don't manage to sort of tell the whole story. And I think that's the beauty of a show like this, is it allows us to go into a certain sort of level of detail and really kind of give people a sort of a big picture perspective. And I think it was also really important to kind of humanize the people associated with the headlines. And I think that goes for the perpetrators of the crimes associated with the opioid crisis and the victims of the opioid crisis, the people who are the victims of opioid abuse disorder. Humanizing those individuals are really important to understand how we got to this point. So understanding the fact that every addict is not just an addict. There's a human being behind the story of every addict. And that's really, really important, excuse me, and it gets lost in the narrative very often, because we are, I think, in the media, very guilty of dehumanizing folks who struggle with addiction. And similarly, it's important to humanize the individuals who are responsible for the crimes, because we need to understand that these aren't sort of monsters or cosmic forces of evil. These are human beings who are put in positions of power, who hold, very, very important positions and adopt very influential roles in society. And understanding their psychology is very necessary so that we can identify them and make sure that we're not, for example, voting in the direction whereby someone like that has that sort of power and that level of influence. So humanizing, I think, people on both sides is very, very important.
One of the interesting challenges with your character that you were given for this performance was you have to convey this growing internal conflict. You have to convey that, all that internal conflict and emotion that Billy feels as the series progresses. And I was wondering, what was the most challenging part of that for you?
Yeah, I think the most challenging part was, managing the sort of rock and a hard place that Billy found himself between in developing an organic and sort of much needed father-like son, friendship or dynamic with Dr. Finnix, and genuinely feeling a connection to him and a real sense of comfort in that dynamic. And then also, wanting to climb the ranks at Purdue, wanting to, ascend the corporate ladder and gain notoriety and money and, status and achieve things that I think formerly in his life, he'd probably not thought he'd get a legitimate chance of sort of harnessing. And so it was sort of being caught between those two things. And I think the thing that you see Billy struggle with, and ultimately something that he doesn't kind of reckon with soon enough, is when he comes across information that reveals exactly what the sort of the campaign behind the introduction of OxyContin was, which is that it's fraudulent, and it was a fraudulent campaign. He doesn't take action right away. He doesn't do the right thing. He's not a upstander immediately. He falls prey to the trappings of money, of status, of this corporate kind of notoriety. And he continues to do the wrong thing for a while. And in the process, he really damages his relationship with Finnix and knowingly hurts him. And I think that was simultaneously the most interesting thing about the character's arc for me, and also probably the hardest thing to play. And, that probably culminated for me in the scene in episode 5 when, I'm talking to Finnix and, he is in the rehabilitation facility largely because of my actions. And, in that moment, I'm quite selfishly, I think, almost coming to him for a sort of almost a sort of a version of forgiveness for his forgiveness. And then to sort of find out that he is so desperately in the vice of addiction and still so gripped by that he can't do anything but ask me if I can provide him with some more OxyContin. It was sort of really heartbreaking and yeah, quite a difficult moment to play out.
Piggybacking off of what you're saying right there, two of the most prominent people that you act alongside in the series are Michael Keaton as Dr. Finnix and Philippa Sue as the other sales rep. What were they like to have as scene partners?
I mean, unbelievable. If I may start with Philippa, she's such a wonderful actor. I was a fan of hers from Hamilton, and to see her range just between her portrayal of Eliza and her portrayal of Amber in Dopesick is pretty extraordinary. She's I'm pleased to report a lot more like Eliza than she is Amber, and she was a wonderful scene partner. Just also had a real sense of sort of fun and energy about her way of working. And I don't know whether that's just because she's such a kind of prolifically sort of experienced theater actor, which I definitely not, but her willingness to kind of play and try things was amazing, and couldn't really have wished for a better scene partner. And Michael Keaton, I mean, what do I say about Michael Keaton? One of the greatest, living actors, and a true honor to get an opportunity to be in scenes with him. And honestly, he's so good that it makes my job really easy. It's kind of just sort of a reacting task. He does so much of the heavy lifting for you, and you just, are there kind of absorbing the reality and the authenticity of it. And that's all that's required, really. And he was really wonderful to me as well, as an experienced and an incredibly talented actor. You know, he really kind of extended himself to offer me advice and support, and that really meant a lot, especially with all that he had on his plate and what was, you know, an incredibly consuming task when playing Dr. Finnix.
I know a lot of your scenes were interiors, but were all those shot in Richmond, in the Richmond, Virginia area, as well as like all the other ones?
Yes, yeah. For the most part, we were in Richmond, Virginia, and certainly, you know, Virginia at large, which I think was really, really important. You know, it was important for us to, I think, tell the story at the epicenter of the crisis. I think we were reliant on the contributions of so many Virginians to make the show, and they welcomed us with open arms. And obviously, you know, this is an incredibly sensitive and painful and still, you know, ongoing issue for folks in that area of the country. So we're very grateful to them to have kind of, you know, sort of proverbially opened their doors to us. And, you know, I think it was also, you know, very, very emotionally stirring for a lot of our cast and crew who had, you know, may have had personal experiences or may have been kind of affected secondhand by the crisis, such as the kind of prolific nature of this thing. You know, inevitably, everyone was only a couple of degrees separation from the opioid crisis. So, you know, that was tough at times, I think, on set, but it was very necessary that we shot it there.
I also asked this because I'm in Virginia as well. I'm in Northern Virginia, very different part than Richmond and the Panhandle region where a lot of this takes place. But I was curious as to what were your thoughts about the city of Richmond, and what was it like, you know, seeing what that city was like outside of working?
I absolutely loved my time in Richmond. Quite honestly, the friendliest city I've ever been in the world. I mean, folks are just so friendly. I don't know if that's because I'm a sort of grizzly Londoner, but people were so lovely and, you know, polite and forthcoming. And that was a really kind of lovely sort of aspect of my time out there, particularly when shooting something pretty heavy, you know, and during a pandemic. It meant that when you did step outside, you know, for a walk with your mask on, you know, people were at least smiling with their eyes and saying hi. And that was really lovely. And, you know, I was also kind of really encouraged by just the sort of air of social progression that seems to exist in Richmond. You know, there's a lot of, you know, signage that I think points to, you know, kind of a socio-politically engaged sort of energy about the city. And I saw that to be true in action as well, not just in terms of the signage.
Yeah, you happened to, I think you happened to be there right when they were starting to pull down the statues along Monument Avenue, which my friends and I were renaming Pedestal Avenue because that was all that was left there after they were pulled down.
There you go.
I was actually talking to you about this before we started recording. You know, that many people may not realize is you've worked with an impressive list of directors, and I'm just going to indulge and name some of them right now, like Garth Jennings, Dexter Fletcher, James Gunn, Catherine Bigelow, Iñárritu, Barry Jenkins, Ari Aster. Even after, and dear God, you were so great in Midsummer as well. You were so great at that. Even after working with all these people, who is on your bucket list of directors that you hope to work with?
Wow. Thank you, because reading that out, I'm sort of like taken aback as well. It's a really special list of people. I genuinely feel lucky to have worked with all of them. Catherine Bigelow was always on my bucket list, so I feel sort of incredibly lucky that I got that opportunity. Steve McQueen is really on my bucket list too. Andrea Arnold, I would love to work with. Director called Kibwe Tavares, who may not be as well known, but incredibly talented, and I really hope to work with Kibwe. Lynn Ramsey, My gosh, I could probably go all day. Martin Scorsese, why not? Seeing as we're just, if this is a dream list, I may as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd at heart, you know, when it comes to film. So yeah, I could probably go all day with my list, but those are a few.
And as I was saying at the beginning of this, you received an Emmy nomination for your performance here for supporting actor in a limited series or movie. What was it like when you found out that you had gotten nominated for that Emmy a couple weeks ago?
Oh my gosh, not something I expected at all. You know, I was incredibly proud to see the show get recognized in the way that it did, and for, you know, it to receive 14 Emmy nominations is just phenomenal. You know, I think we all feel really excited at the prospect of that, you know, helping the conversation that surrounds the issues the show addresses, and namely, you know, I think the issue of addiction and the need to, I think, empathize with folks who struggle with the disease that is addiction. You know, we really hope that the Emmy recognition will help kind of embed that into the public consciousness a little bit more, and also kind of draw attention to the fact that, you know, while the show is a piece of entertainment, it also speaks to a lot of largely irreversible injustice, you know, that was done against American people. And it's important that we don't allow something like that to happen again, and that we're vigilant, you know, in response. And to be personally recognized is a huge honor. That's nothing I could have ever expected or you know, really reasonably asked for. But I'm super honored. And you know, sometimes as an actor, you're fortunate enough to play a role in something that is, I mean, so much greater than, you know, certainly your performance or even what it offers as a piece of entertainment. You know, I think to have a role in trying to course correct the narrative around a story as important as this is just an immense honor more than anything else. And the awards are a lovely bonus to all of that. And very, very grateful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best over these next couple of months. And to all of our viewers, please like this video, smash that subscribe button. Don't forget to go to goldderby.com to make your predictions for this year's Emmys. Thanks so much, Will.
Thanks, Charlie. Take care.